everybody. Welcome to the Training, Learning, and Development community. We've got a nice sort of later member showcase going today. Our guest is Tabatha Dragonberry, who is a member of TLDC, and I'm very excited to talk with her. I've just seen her out and about on the internet in different places, on LinkedIn, other places, idle courses. I think I was introduced to you by Robin, like one of the community day events or something like that. And so I really am grateful for the opportunity you're taking to chat with us today.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think actually we were first introduced when I was living in the Middle East, and I was attending some of the events and just chiming in on different topics.
Love it. Okay, cool. So for those of you that don't know, what we're doing is we're showcasing some of TLDC members, and we have like 30 minutes or so and a bunch of questions in the Ask a Question area that's located on the bottom of the screen. If you guys want to add some, please feel free to do so. And really, this is just kind of about meeting folks in instructional design that have careers in L&D and just getting to know them, because ultimately it kind of helps us understand ourselves a little better once we get to know what other folks are doing. And Tabatha, you in particular, you have some interesting stuff going on. You are a licensed respiratory therapist, as well as an instructional designer. And then in the green room, we're just talking, and you used to teach martial arts. So that's not on your LinkedIn profile for some reason.
Because that one's like decades ago.
But what other things? Are there anything else you can surprise us with as far as
professional makeup artist?
Oh, really? Wow. So you've got all kinds of things going on. How about let me start with this question real quick, because this one is something that just popped out first thing when I thought about having this conversation with you. But did you choose having a career in instructional design over respiratory therapy?
No, because I'm still a respiratory therapist. I'm still very much involved in the respiratory community. Right now, I'm not doing bedside care anymore, but I am the director of online education for the Division of Respiratory Care at UT Health San Antonio. And this is probably the first time in 15 years that I haven't been doing bedside care. So up until recently, just because of some contract things with my job, it doesn't allow me to do that, or I'd probably still be doing that on the weekends, because the one thing in healthcare, you can have what we call per diem, and you can just go work a couple days out of a 16-week or 6-week, 8-week period. So I do like connecting with patients. I think that I've been doing it for so long, it's ingrained in me and helping people, and it just continues on in different ways. So now I'm more on the education side only. And with that, I'm making sure that the respiratory therapists at the bedside have even more education. And especially last year, dealing with, COVID and stress and things like that, I provided out a lot of free webinars and CEUs, because a lot of respiratory therapists were working and they didn't have the time to get what they needed to keep their license current. So my podcast is all respiratory, looking at advancing respiratory care and making sure that people realize there's a lot of opportunities in respiratory care within our own community. We kind of look like some people feel like the redheaded stepchild of healthcare. And I really think, just like in instructional design, your career path is what you make it. And there's my home coworker barking in the background.
We got to have those guests on the show too. They're always popping in for some comments. But so tell me, what was that decision-making process of deciding to focus on education and instructional design over your clinical stuff?
I think it was a transition over many years. So back in 2010, I started out as a clinical instructor. In healthcare, most professors become professors because they are good at what they do. And this is, I think, in many fields, but they don't necessarily get that formal education on what's training. I think that academia really still needs a shakeup when we're delivering 3-hour-long classes, and we as instructional designers know that isn't the way adult learners learn. So I think trying to support different things, I'm going to be doing a project where I'm using Glide app, and it's going to be like a daily quiz for students just to kind of prepare them for, hey, you are going to be tested on this type of stuff later. This is your first semester in school. Let's prep you. And then they can see the difficulty, see how they gauge their learning, and see if we can engage them on their cell phones instead of at the, they take that exam and then they get that deer in the headlight looks like, oh my God, I didn't know what I was doing.
Right. I mean, it must be such a huge thing to be the SME and the instructional designer being able to provide this stuff, right?
And I'm lucky with my online side. My students are very happy. We've gone through 1 year of students. I have them graduating. They're really enjoying the classes. It was a breakdown of architecture, and we kept some of the foundation and rebuilt something totally different. And they're liking it. And that's, I think, the joy of it is when your students in a discussion and you see them on video saying, I am so glad we're talking about this right now. I'm starting my own business, and this is actually very timely. You're like, yeah, that's what these aren't supposed to be these academic abstruse topics that aren't going to be applicable. So the feedback that I'm getting with the design of the courses is I am able to learn something today, and I actually can start practicing it tomorrow. And what else? How many academic degrees do you really see yourself doing that?
Right. Well, let's talk a little bit about your journey to instructional design. You were an educator prior to actually formally becoming an instructional designer. How did that work? You had mentioned a little bit before we started that you had met somebody on staff and your first instructional design person. Tell us a little bit more about that story.
So I was obviously in healthcare all the time, and I facilitated advanced life support courses. And down the little hallway, there's some little offices, and you end up just meeting people just because, hey, what do you do? You're in this little building that no one ever visits other than when they do life support classes. And I met my first instructional designer. He was actually a PhD in instructional design, and this was back in 2014. And, I like to network and talk to people. I've been doing my film and video degree. That was something that they ingrained in me when I was very, very young. And I was, hey, what are you doing? And he showed me a storyline project that he was building for the doctors and how it was branching. And if they did this, it went this way. And if they did that, they went that way. And they could still get to the right answer, but maybe this way there was a lot more obstacles to get there than if they would have made the better choice.
Yeah.
And he gave me my first storyline license back in 2014. And I was in a master's in education at the time, focused on medical education. And I incorporated that into my program of hey, I have this tool that was free. Luckily, I didn't have to pay for it because it was still, when you're a respiratory therapist kind of dabbling, you don't want to invest that. But now I have my own storyline license, and it helps me out with what I'm doing. And it's always festered, and I've been in education, and I had an idea for a business that I'm like, you know what? I really would like some more formal education in this. I got my instructional design master's after I got an MBA. There's a lot of things in there. And I was able to just kind of add to that flavor in saying, okay, I'm going to admit my instructional design master's did not give me all the skills that I wanted. And I feel like I've had to upskill myself, but it did give me a nice foundation. I enjoyed it. We were a little more techie. We did video, and we did instructional video and audio, because I know that there's always this conversation of my program is very academic and all it is theory, and we do more than just theory. So I think some of the instructional design programs need to look at what we do. Yeah.
So what was your favorite part of being an instructional designer, or of being in learning and development? What was the thing that just, that excited you the most about it?
I think anytime you see people's aha moments. I mean, that's really what it's about. If it doesn't, whether you're designing things for a SaaS project, a healthcare project, soft skills, getting them to where they actually are making actions and showing them, whether it's, hey, I'm helping you get the foundation to upskill your career. That's really what is the most exciting part. It's helping others reach their goals. Because I think that that's what learning and designers are doing. Their job is to identify the skills or the gaps in that people have and to fill them so that they can be successful. So I feel like we're structural cheerleaders.
There you go. I like that. Structural cheerleaders. And that answer is pretty consistent amongst everyone that we interview. It's, helping people, find those aha moments and just that light bulb showing up. And I love hearing that. Is there, so what kind of projects are you working on right now?
So right now I'm really excited about I put in for a grant. So whether this project is going to happen or not, I don't know. I'm hoping that I win the grant. It is actually using a text-based course for sex trafficking to educate healthcare providers on sex trafficking, because that is something now that is being brought to the attention of healthcare workers, that over 50 to 60% of those that are trafficked have encountered healthcare providers along the way.
Wow.
And that helping them being able to recognize the signs of people's actions. And you know what? A friend of mine many years ago, her kid broke his femur. He was 2 years old. It was a very odd break for a 2-year-old. Did they get investigated? Yes. Did they not get in trouble because it was an accident? Truly, yes. So I think because it's such a huge problem globally, that, teaching them and saying, hey, this doesn't look right, we need to look into it, might save someone from exploitation, whether it's labor or sex.
Wow. So that sounds like a really fascinating project. What did I just saw something? Josh was saying, wow, that sounds like a great resource for healthcare. And Janet saying, I love hearing that more is being done about sex trafficking. Where did the topic come up for you? Was it just something that you thought, and you even submitted a grant for it. So, what's the background to all that?
So it's something that is becoming more common. I have medical licenses in various states. Florida requires sex trafficking. Texas, where I live now, is now, as of January 1, requiring sex trafficking education. That one has to be approved by the state. So I want to go through the whole process of turning it in. And I'm sure it's going to be their first text-based course and getting that approved. It is a big problem, and I think we're talking about it more. And because we're talking about it more, and we're seeing that we've missed the boat on helping save people from a horrible life, I think that's the topic that because the grant was more about innovation. We want innovative ways to deliver education, and because I got them I saw the grant, and I'm like, ooh, I like it. I was trying to get a needs assessment. I called, got a video call, and they're like, we're looking just for something that would serve our community, but we're more interested in how the delivery is. So with that one, it was just kind of, okay, well, I'm doing this research because I'm wanting to get accredited to be a speaker on it within our state. And this is something that's global. And I feel like it would be a great resource for educators, especially in micro learning, because healthcare providers, they're not going to go sit down on an hour-long e-learning or a module-based e-learning, but they can take the statistics on people opening their text message and 1,200 characters and maybe send them to something. They don't have to log in. You've taken out a lot of the I have to get to the computer, or I have to log into my LMS, and then I have to go find the course that I want. So I think that it's an innovative way. So we'll see if I win the grant. I'm hoping I do, and make it a reality and test it out and pilot it. Because I think that what's great about the system is you can choose the time of day you get your text message. So you know when you're usually busy. I'm busy between this time and this time. Maybe 8:30 at night is the best time for you to receive this text, that you'll take a look at it.
Yeah, that's so fascinating, Tabitha. Thanks for sharing that with us. I mean, Josh has a question. He's wondering, will this sex traffic education only work in the jurisdiction where you live, or could it be adapted to multiple areas?
So the client that I would be doing this for is a worldwide client. So there's different ways to get it accredited. I do want to get it accredited for the state of Texas. They require a special accreditation. For example, Florida, they just kind of require certain topics, but there isn't a body that's blessing, per se, the CEUs. So I think that I need to do more research on if there's any other states like Texas. I was actually today trying to find out, is the Department of Health and Human Services, they have a sex trafficking department. Is there a way to just get a US based one? And usually if it's US based, you're able to translate it. Like a CME in the US counts as a CME in overseas.
Well, Tabitha, keep us posted. You need any help with that, and you want some feedback from the community, please don't hesitate to reach out. Would love to help you with that. So what a great project that you're being involved in. I mean, just the awareness and getting people educated on it, that alone is just invaluable. So I love that you're doing that. Now, in your career, you've been like an instructional designer, maybe like what, 7 years or so. You've been an educator for a really, really long time. Is there anything you know now that you wish you had known, like before you'd started on this path?
I think really, I would say within the last 2 years is where I've actually started networking within the community. And ironically enough, right, I'm usually I've had people call me asking me questions, and by the end of the conversation, I'm blogging for them on their healthcare website. So I think it took me a longer time for some reason to start networking within the community. I think that I have an idea that I want to put out there I just need to schedule my plan. I'll just put it out here. I'm going to probably, when I was younger, we did like 100 dates in 100 days. So I do want to set up like 100 days of networking and just put a calendar out there, say, hey, there's 15 minutes for 100 days, maybe like Monday through Friday, because not everybody wants to network on the weekend, and just meet people, because I think that that's the connection. I know for me, I'm always willing to connect with people. There was somebody that was interested in something, and it's like, oh, hey, let's just have a little video. One of my vlogs is coffee talk. Let's meet for 15 minutes. And she was interested in certain jobs, and guess what? The next month, all I kept seeing were jobs that she was interested in, and I would send them to her and be like, hey, did you see this job? If not, go apply. This is in your niche that you're looking for, which is not a niche that I'm interested in. But because I talked to her, it kind of was like those cars, you buy a new car and now you see everybody has that car because you're in tune to it. So I was in tune to somebody who was interested in that type of role. And it was like, you know what? It doesn't take 2 minutes to be nice and say, hey, did you see this job? And if you did, no big deal. And if you didn't, who knows? Maybe you've helped somebody connect with their next opportunity.
Right. And I think that networking piece is sort of, you don't really even realize how powerful it can be for you until you actually, start doing it. And I know for myself, I didn't, I typically am like a behind the scenes type of person. The networking actually takes quite a bit out of me. But what I've realized is anytime I put energy into it, it pretty much comes back to me at least double. So, yeah, I totally agree with you. That's a great tip to offer for folks that are just getting back into this space or getting into this space. So let's talk about some of your training projects. Is there anything that is kind of one of your favorites, something that you'd like to talk about that you're really proud of?
No, not I think right now, it's just kind of brainstorming and looking at some different things. I have a little portfolio piece that is on cybersecurity that I really like. I did a little, I put some stuff in my test your limits kind of thing in my portfolio. I'm working on some stuff for channel enablement and things like that. Because a lot of the stuff that you do at work, you can't transition into your portfolio. It's proprietary or whatnot. So I think that with my particular portfolio, when I talk to people about it, they come with one piece. Like I spoke to somebody and they're like, oh my God, I loved your witch quiz. Or, oh, that cybersecurity thing was super interesting. Tell me about the creativity on that. Or, like somebody I was talking to there said, you were so natural on your video. I did like the Zoom thing, like a little tutorial, very short. So it's interesting listening to people and talking to them, what they grab onto. So I think right now it's just like, I have something in my head. I'm like, I want to do something that has a carnival theme. I think it's more right now. It's like, okay, I can't necessarily always do this at work. So how can I test my limits in a safe space? And one of the pieces that I'm working on is like on Adderall addiction, because a friend of mine's daughter ended up dying recently due to an Adderall addiction. So I think like that one I'm still working on, and I'm still playing on that one. And that I'm also looking at doing some interactive story with the sex trafficking, and really trying to, it's the emotions. When you tug on people's emotions and those things, those are the things that are memorable in learning. Like if you have your favorite movie, you can think about these poignant times in it and be like, man, that was the point. And that's where I think I'm very passionate about gamification. I'm going to be working on my Game Master certification with Sententia this month, actually, because now we're in June. And that one is going to be another, based on sex trafficking, but making that more outside with a different focus, just because right now, if I'm digging into sex trafficking, we're going to use that in multiple areas. And like I said, it's for healthcare providers. So getting it out there it's more about getting it out there, and let's have that conversation, because this is not a conversation that I have had as a healthcare provider or things like that. I've been educated on child abuse and I've seen a lot of bad things, but these people try to hide the bad things versus some of the more obvious ones that I've dealt with in my career.
Yeah. It's interesting. Educators are kind of harbingers of change, right? They're kind of, they're educating people and basically, helping people create different versions of themselves. And I find that a lot with like some of the better instructional designers out there, when they're passionate about a certain, topic or thing, they actually want to help create or build topics around it so that they can, continue to facilitate what they think is important, which is, bringing that change out in people. So I kind of just really get that from you. Yeah. And I have a good question from Josh here. Besides NDAs from clients, how did you choose what to include in your portfolio?
You build your portfolio to the market that you're looking for. So my portfolio is very creative. Like when you hit it doesn't really look like anybody else's. It does start with like a logo video. It's very dark and black and white because I'm very into photography. So, I saw something like, I want to have it not all this color. It's going to be a little different. So I'm creating the pieces that I want to do. So I saw something on cybersecurity that was an inspiration, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to make my own course that's way different, but inspired by something. Cause you get inspired by things. I have like an idea for a carnival course, and I'm like, okay, so maybe this can be like the customer service carnival and go through it. Because when you're working with your portfolio, you're wanting to show the best that you can do. Not in every job are you going to be able to make a carnival course, but that particular thing shows, drag and drop or like these advanced interactions. So if you can do this in this very creative way, you can always circle back into something more business. But I think that it's really just highlighting your skills and finding things that you're interested in, and meet the market that you're looking at. You can make a really great piece on how to make a turkey, but to me, that's going to be really highlighting your design and your thought process. But then right now there's a piece on cloud computing in my portfolio because I decided to take the AWS certification on their lowest level because I was like, I need to learn more about this. A lot of jobs are talking about the cloud. Let me dig deeper. And then, I did some training and now I've turned it into its own little course and created some videos and did a Rise course because I wanted to create a Rise course for my portfolio. So I think it's really, really showing the skills you have, but also kind of marketing. So if you're looking at corporate, think corporate topics, go look at business blogs for ideas, soft skills, those types of things.
Yeah. Can you share your portfolio? Is that something that?
Yeah, I can put that in the chat.
Nice. Okay.
Let me just get to the link.
And so let's see, we're 28 minutes in, but let me ask you sort of that question we were talking about right before we went live. Now you said you've been functioning as a mentor, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I do work with Idle Courses Academy, and I helped many a teacher, a lot, and other people that aren't teachers transition into instructional design. There's always that discussion. Do you need a degree? I think that many times your portfolio, if you have a very strong portfolio, and the conversations that I have with people when I am, I always passively like to look for work. You never know. As also being a mentor, I'm able to answer questions about interviewing if you're interviewing. And that way, the first thing out of their mouths is like, oh, your portfolio, this is what jumped out at me, or, oh, it was creative, or, oh, this, or, so I really think that teachers have a foundation, but they're going to have to upskill. It's going to be very hard to walk from the classroom into an instructional design position. Teachers are usually given a curriculum in which they teach, right? Instructional designers are given business problems that they need to identify whether or not is training the answer. And if it's not the answer, eloquently say, hey, this isn't the answer for this. Training isn't going to solve this problem. I can train up all day. This is still going to be a problem. Or, hey, this training needs to be an e-learning. This could be a simple job aid. So I think we are the curators of business problems and thinking about return on investment. Those are things that in other worlds we're not thinking about. But as an instructional designer, if somebody's going to spend $30,000 on an interactive e-learning story, they need to know that $30,000 is going to be saving $90,000 or getting them more business or helping salespeople seal the deal more, that $30,000 was a drop in the bucket for the success that it had.
I love it. I'm going to clip that. Is that okay?
Yeah.
And put it out there, because there's actually a conversation going on in our Slack channel that is that's focused specifically on this kind of the teacher to the ID journey. And so I think that would be really, really helpful if I just were to clip that and throw that out there, because I've been parts of this. I've been in this conversation multiple times, but that's really the first time that I've heard that, and it's absolutely, that's absolutely the case. And so the other question that I had in there too, that goes along with that is, what do you think the minimum you need? If you're a teacher, what's the minimum you need to do to actually start working as an instructional designer?
I think you're going to have to invest some time in yourself. And, I work for Idle Courses Academy. That's one thing. I would say find a group, whether it's Idle Courses or someone else, but I would say do your research. There are tons of pop-up, oh, here's an instructional design course. I feel like in the last 2 years, there's so many more. Really find the group that calls to you. And that makes a huge difference. And do the research. What kind of work have they done? What are their student successes? Are their students landing jobs? Because I feel like there's a lot of people out there that are doing a pop-up instructional design academy. And I was speaking to somebody last week that said, I had a bad experience with X group, and they're weary about it, which I totally understand, because they had a bad experience from somebody who I know has a reputation for not having a good experience. And with that, they're like buyer beware. But I would say if they're not helping you develop the skills and upskilling, and you need e-learning, I personally, right now, my portfolio does not have any instructor-led training, because right now I'm more looking for freelance. I've done a lot of instructor-led training. That isn't what lights my fire. So I don't have that piece. So I think having an instructor-led training might be something that is good to have. Do I have those pieces? Yes, I just don't highlight them. So I think you need to really dig down to the jobs that you're looking at. Does it say Camtasia? Does it say Storyline? What skills? Go and do an evaluation of skills. This is what I have. This is what I lack. And that's where you need to focus. And, I would say you need at least one e-learning, have one Rise, have one of everything at the minimum to kind of start looking in like 3 categories. But then while you're looking, you need to fill it up, because there's a lot of, and I know there's debates on, should jobs give you a test, right? Because a lot of jobs do that. And, people can say that they developed something and they stole it from someone else. Or I remember a video that I saw by one of the instructional designers that said, it was kind of funny. I was interviewing somebody and I put something out on eLearning Heroes. It was in their portfolio and I'm the one who put it out there.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh no, this is my design, versus saying, oh, this was somebody else's design that I recreated to test myself, but they put it out there as their own. So I think you're going to get caught. So being able to do it from the ground up, when you're learning Storyline, I say stay away from the templates, because those templates have triggers and things like that. And if you can't actually deconstruct it down to make those changes, maybe once you're more skilled and you understand everything, you're able to make those changes. But when you're starting out, you need to understand the foundations of everything to be able to take a template and deconstruct it, if that makes sense.
Does. Yeah. Josh has an interesting question about this. What if you're not in the teaching profession? What if, like, say you were, I don't know, Josh, what's your background? Or like, what if you're IT?
Yeah, what's the background?
Yeah, like what if you're IT or marketing and you wanted to go into instructional design?
I think that it's very still possible. You're still going to have to upskill, because in your especially like with marketing, teaching and learning and L&D is stealing a lot from marketing. Yeah. I mean, that's their whole thing. They're supposed to catch your attention, grab your attention, get you interested in something in a short period of time. But let's say you're in IT, you can still be, I worked in a customer service call center. Let's go back many, many years. Guess what? I had to be a trainer for other people. I had to help do all these other tasks. So really kind of maybe figure out what can carry forward. Let's see, he has a master's in instructional technology management and face-to-face. Yeah, you have the experience, right? That face-to-face training, you have an understanding of adult learners. Again, it's upskilling, preparing your portfolio to catch the hiring manager's attention. You want to have a nice resume. You want to optimize your LinkedIn. You want to turn on your open to opportunities that in the background, because there's different settings, and be out there and expect rejection letters. It's going to happen, but for every percentage of rejection letters, you're going to get some bites, and all you need is one.
Yeah. Do you think that as an instructional designer, you have to have some e-learning skills? You have to like build something in Storyline or Captivate or whatever else?
I think it comes down to the job you're looking for. Mm-hmm. If the job description says it, yes. Are there instructional design jobs that don't require e-learning? Yes. There was one company that I had interviewed with, and they were only interested in storyboarding. They're like, we have a company that does our development and does our creation, but and they basically sent it out overseas. But what I'm paying you for is your brain and your instructional design and your theory and being able of adult learning. So I really think it just comes down to the job description that you're looking at. So if they're saying they want e-learning, there's a reason why they want e-learning. A friend of mine has a job where she does not do the e-learning, but they wanted her to have experience in Storyline, because unless you know what you're doing in the software, it's hard to storyboard for someone else to develop. Right? So if you're going to storyboard, even for a developer, you need to be able to understand that, hey, this is going to be the little nitty gritty of that. Because unless you don't have to be perfect at it, because e-learning it's a time suck to develop something in Storyline. Especially if you're doing something like super creative. But to be able to communicate that to the developer of, I'm looking for this, or I need a variable here, or this is gonna be a cross variable across the whole slides, that it's gonna add up at the end, and if it adds to this, they see this, and if they adds to that, it sees that, beyond the just knowledge check quizzing. Because you can do some really intricate things. And when you're working for these companies, that's what they're paying you for. They're paying you for, like, okay, get me to a really great end product.
Right. No, definitely. All right. Before we wrap up, tell me more about the Vent Room. Why'd you create it? And maybe just sort of give us the backstory with that one.
So the Vent Room is my respiratory therapy focused podcast. I do have an idea, but it's just, there's too much going on. So until I can focus up on that. But with respiratory therapists, 90% of respiratory therapists work in the hospital. So with the Vent Room, I'm highlighting more non-traditional roles of respiratory therapists in research or sales or clinical specialty, and just showing that respiratory therapy itself is an opportunity. And respiratory therapy can jump you into instructional design if you upskill. Really, it doesn't. There's a lot of opportunities. And I think that in instructional design, when you're meeting other people, they are looking for somebody with not only instructional design background, but hey, you draw in from business. If you see anything on healthcare like HIPAA or a lot of client-facing things, I've seen a lot of medical device companies now putting out for instructional designers. I've taken e-learning. Like, I worked in healthcare for a really long time. And sadly to say, like, one particular system that has been in every hospital for training, they haven't done anything in 15 years. I'm like, they need to step it up a notch. I mean, this is a really boring course. I mean, I understand it's regulated because of the CME aspect of it. So, you really don't make an hour-long e-learning, but we still do. But there's still ways to make it more engaging than what it is. And I think that that's the challenge, is looking at how we're teaching people. And if I'm getting bored with it, chances are, like, after 15 years of seeing the same thing, even just fire safety or things like that, there's some really cool ways to engage people a little bit differently.
Yeah. And so, but why did you decide to start the podcast? Was it something like, did you see the need out there? Was it something personal? Like,
I think it's a combination of both. At that time, there wasn't really any respiratory therapy podcasts, period. Now there's a couple more. And it's just helping others in the field know about their opportunities. Because there are, like, sometimes in some of the, I'm in L&D Facebook, but I'm also in respiratory Facebook. And they're like, oh, it's a dead end field, or somebody saying, oh, I'm interested in respiratory. Should I go into it? And when you have therapists saying no, I'm just like, dude, it was one of the best things that my ex-husband gave me. I love respiratory care. I love learning. I like mixing the two. I like keeping them separate. It just really depends. And that really bugged me, because I know respiratory therapists that have done some really great things outside of the bedside, and we can work in doctors' offices, in research, in education, pushing the limits of your terminal credential.
Right, right. I love it. You know, it seems like, Tabatha, you're so dynamic. You've got all these different things going on. I really appreciate you coming on and doing this interview today. I hope that everybody that's in the audience, if you can, just grab that LinkedIn URL. If you're not already connected to Tabatha, connect to her. And she was kind enough to share the URL to her portfolio in chat as well. And yeah, Tabatha, thank you so much for sharing this time.
And you know, it's kind of funny. I've ran into and worked with 4 to 5 new respiratory therapists that are working now on instructional design. One of our mentors and coaches is Chris Wirtz. He is somebody that, ironically enough, me and him used to run ambulance transport in Washington, D.C. So we like reconnected after being disconnected for 5 years. And we're now both in instructional design. He's a paramedic. I'm a respiratory therapist. So there's a lot of opportunity for healthcare providers that it's just skills from other professions do carry over.
Right. Is there something like there between that relationship of like just being an SME and then moving into instructional design and building content that is specific to, you know, this other skill set that you have?
Well, I think what it is healthcare providers, a lot of healthcare providers get into teaching or facilitation, whether it's training within the hospital, other professionals, being like a clinical preceptor, designing education. I've designed orientation manuals. I designed checkoffs and competencies and all these other things that all equate to instructional design. And if there were more healthcare instructional designers in the healthcare space, I think some of the stuff that we do for training would be better.
Have you ever thought about starting a sort of healthcare instructional design community?
There is on Facebook, there is already like instructional designers in healthcare group. It's not my group, but and there are many healthcare focused instructional design companies. I've done work for them freelance. Right now I'm a little busy. So, but definitely like healthcare skills. I've talked to people. I had somebody reach out to me about, hey, you're the person who I know that is probably the best person to talk to. And I said, hey, you're wanting to get into, you need to get a degree because of your work to keep your job. You're a professor in respiratory care. Think about instructional design. And you know what? If you're really wanting to get out of instructional or respiratory care, you do get burnt out in healthcare. You know, I did pediatrics for most of my career. I've been there on people's worst days. I've been there on people's best days. I've handed babies to parents who pass away in their arms. And sometimes you just need to find other outlets that your skill set can be done, because there is a very large problem in healthcare burnout. And right now, post-COVID, one of the projects that I'm working on with some students is assessing like PTSD in healthcare providers post-COVID, because there was a lot of conversations. Do I stay in the field? I'm scared. We don't know what's going on. And I think that it's a challenge, and I like to reinvent myself. Hence why I like to expand my education and you know, why I professional makeup artistry, why it's a creative outlet. It got me away from the day-to-day of caring for 6 people, because it takes a lot out of you physically and emotionally after doing that for 15 years on holiday. I worked 10 years straight. I worked Christmases. Why? Because I didn't have any kids. And I would just say, hey, I'll work your holiday. But we don't stop. We're nonstop. So it's nice. The transition, that work-life balance is a little different when you're thinking instructional design, but you're still able to help people in general. And for me, I just keep giving back to my respiratory community. Even if I'm not practicing every day, I'm talking to the people practicing and saying, hey, what are you doing that is inspirational? Because if we don't have inspired, I don't want to be taken care of by a non-inspired healthcare provider when I'm sick.
Right. Right. Wow. Well, Tabitha, thanks so much. I've learned a good amount from you today. I really appreciate it. And now you're going to be kind of like my go-to healthcare instructional designer. Like if anything pops up, I'm going to send them your way.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for joining us. We actually have another couple member showcases this week. Tomorrow, Teresa Franco Macaro, who is an incredible storyteller. She's going to be joining us. So sign up for that one as well. And then Anna Smith, I think she's on Friday. She's from HubSpot, which if any of you have any marketing skills whatsoever, you've probably heard of HubSpot, and that is going to be a really interesting one as well. So please join us, and we'll see you guys later. Thanks again, Tabitha.
I told you we were stealing stuff from marketing.
Yep, definitely. All right, bye everybody.